Hello, people. I am here to tell you today that football is fake, just as the title of the video says. Now, I have come to this conclusion based on watching football. Now, we'll get to the Super Bowl here in a moment. The first thing they did in football this season, Peyton Manning and Denver Broncos had a great year. The Denver Broncos haven't done shit for the last few years yet. All of a sudden, they get Peyton Manning, and they're good. Yeah, that's fake. That's called fake because you want to make Manning look good. Secondly, look at the Browns. I'm sure sometime in the Browns' last 10 years they've been around, they've had a good team. But no, football is fake, and they want to keep the Browns the lovable losers. What else do we have to talk about? Oh, yeah, the playoffs. The playoffs were so fake this year. I mean, we knew Tom Brady would get in because New England's popular. As soon as Ray Lewis announced his retirement, we all knew the Ravens would get in. More on them later. The 49ers. People were excited. All of a sudden, they're good. And look at all these rookie quarterbacks this year who have done great. It's like the Colts did great this year. The Colts won, one game last year? How all of a sudden do you go from winning one game to being in the playoffs with just a great quarterback? That doesn't happen. That's called imaginary. I mean, everybody wanted the 49ers to win. People are pissed off at Dallas. And guess what? Jerry Jones runs his mouth and Dallas does nothing. I bet if Jerry Jones was quiet for a season, they'd let Dallas go to the Super Bowl. But what? Dallas has a good team. They've won good games the last few years. But they're not going to let him go because they don't want Jerry Jones running his mouth. Now let's get to the Super Bowl. 6 weeks before the playoffs started. Well, not 6 weeks before the playoffs started. But as soon as Ray Lewis announced his retirement, I said one of two teams is going to win. The Baltimore Ravens or the Denver Broncos. The Ravens because Lewis was retiring and they'd want him to go out on a high note, or the Denver Broncos because they got Peyton Manning and no one thought he'd be back. What happened? The Baltimore Ravens won. They're like, well, this is Ray Lewis's last season. We'll let him go out on a high note. We can let Peyton Manning win next year, which he probably will. Either next year or the year after, maybe the year after that. But he's going to win one more Super Bowl because they want him to, because no one thought he'd be back. And then watching the Super Bowl, you kind of realize it's fake. First, Baltimore just destroys the 49ers. The 49ers have somehow made it all the way to the Super Bowl, and yet they're getting crushed by a team who should be their equal. I mean, when was the Baltimore Ravens made it into the Super Bowl? Last time. 13 years ago, 1999. Every other time they've been knocked out earlier. This time they make it all the way. And they're just crushing the 49ers, who are supposed to be their equal, yet they're just crushing them. Then all of a sudden the power goes out. Guess what? This is a big show now. They let the power go out, and they're like, this is going to be the 49ers' rallying point. And that's exactly what it was. They came back all of a sudden and are crushing the Baltimore Ravens. You don't go from being crushed to crushing your opponent that quickly unless your sport is fake. You don't see that in boxing. You don't see that in any other sport except for pro wrestling, when all of a sudden they'll come back and they'll be crushing their opponent. Well, pro wrestling is fake, and so is football. And then all of a sudden it comes down to the wire. You know, the 49ers, logic says they wouldn't come back, yet they came back and it come down to the wire. This is bullshit. I was screaming at my TV that this is bullshit. And the Ravens do a play no one's ever seen before where they get a safety to keep the 49ers from getting the ball back. Once again, these were planned. They were planned. You're going to do a new play. And then they planned earlier, oh, you're going to score 103, I think it was like a 109-yard kick return. I mean, watch that guy run up the field. I count at least 6 49ers guys who were close enough to him to tackle him, Yeah, they stood there and watched him go by because they knew this is fake. We're supposed to let him do this. It's going to make him look good. So people, football is fake. If you want to watch a fake sport, just keep watching football. But football is just as fake as wrestling.